Welcome back to Book Break. Today I am testing your knowledge with this quiz of famous first lines from books. So you can play along with me. I'm going to read all of the questions out like we're at a pub quiz, and then I will read them out again with the answers. So you can play along and mark your own scores as you go. And I've tried to do a little bit of a mix in here. So a lot of them are classics, a lot of them are very famous first lines, but I've also thrown in some books that have been particularly popular recently to see if you just recognise them, and hopefully they have enough context clues that you might be able to solve them. I've been testing myself on first lines a lot recently. I will link below and at the end of this video to a playlist of my own guessing the first lines of books games. I think I'm pretty good at it, so let's see if you're even better. Okay, I've got 15 questions, let's get into it. So question number 1, I'm starting with a really nice, easy one. Which book has this first line? It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. Question number 2, another very famous one. Which book has this first line? Last night I dreamt I went to Manderley again. Number 3 is one very close to my heart. Christmas won't be Christmas without any presents, grumbled Joe, lying on the rug. Number 4. It was a bright day in April and the clocks were striking 13. Cast your minds back. A lot of you may have read that for the first time at school, maybe. Number 5, a personal favourite of mine. I write this sitting in the kitchen sink. Such a great image. Okay, number 6, I think these are getting slightly harder now. In my younger and more vulnerable years, my father gave me some advice that I've been turning over in my mind ever since. Some of you will recognise that one instantly, but it's harder to guess if you don't instantly recognise it. Number 7 is a good intriguing one. We slept in what had once been the gymnasium. A very iconic first line there. Number 8 I think is such a brilliant first line of a book. The snow in the mountains was melting and Bunny had been dead for several weeks before we came to understand the gravity of our situation. Definitely helps having some names in there to help trigger your memory. And number 9 also has a lot of names and context clues for you to piece together. Are you ready? Everyone in Shaker Heights was talking about it that summer, how Isabel, the last of the Richardson children, had finally gone around the bend and burned their house down. Okay, number 10 I think is pretty hard. It's nice and short, so that is, I lost an arm on my last trip home. Very strange line. What does that mean? Try and think about it and see if you can remember which book involves that. Number 11 is, I'd say, another pretty recognisable one. It was a queer, sultry summer, the summer they electrocuted the Rosenbergs, and I didn't know what I was doing in New York. Number 12 is a really hard one, I think. This is a very, very well-known book. It's a dark opening to this book. So the first line is, you better not never tell nobody but God. Very creepy. Okay, number 13 is the first and only book actually on this list that I haven't read, but this first line definitely makes me want to read it. Hale knew before he had been in Brighton 3 hours that they meant to murder him. Isn't that such a good, strong opening? Okay, number 14 I think is really, really hard. This is one of my favourite books. It's a classic. Before doing research for this quiz, I would not have remembered that this was the first line, so this is a challenge, but give it a go. I'll be really impressed if any of you get this one. It's a nice first line. Ships at a distance have every man's wish on board. What is that? Can you figure out which book has that first line? It's such a good book. Okay, and finally, number 15, I wanted to finish with a fun one, and I wanted to give you more chances to get this, because the very first line is, I think, too hard. So I'm actually going to give you the whole first paragraph, which I think should give you enough information to work it out. I like to save things. Not important things like whales or people or the environment, silly things. Porcelain bells, the kind you get at souvenir shops. Cookie cutters you'll never use, because who needs a cookie in the shape of a foot? Ribbons for my hair, love letters. Of all the things I save, I guess you could say my love letters are my most prized possession. Okay, so that was 15 questions. I'm now going to go through and give you all the answers so you can score yourself and let me know in the comments below how you did. I will be amazingly impressed if any of you got 15 out of 15. I definitely would not have got 15 out of that quiz, but hopefully there are enough in there that you could get. So back to the beginning, let's go through and reveal the answers. It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife, is of course the first line of Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Possibly the most famous first line in all of literature. Last night I dreamt I went to Manderley again is the first line of Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. Another brilliant book. The lovely first line, Christmas won't be Christmas without any presents, grumbled Joe lying on the rug, is the first line of Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. Then the very dystopian, it was a bright day in April and the clocks were striking 13, is the first line of 1984 by George Orwell. Did you study that one at school? I definitely did. Number 5, I write this sitting in the kitchen sink, is the first line of I Capture the Castle by Dodie Smith, which was one of my favourite books growing up. Okay, the number 6, I'm interested to see how many of you instantly knew this one. In my younger and more vulnerable years, my father gave me some advice that I've been turning over in my mind ever since. It's the first line of The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Another one that was a very popular book to study at school. I actually never did. Number 7 is another dystopia. We slept in what had once been the gymnasium. It's the first line of The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. And then number 8, that brilliant first line, the snow in the mountains was melting and Bunny had been dead for several weeks before we came to understand the gravity of our situation, is the first line of The Secret History by Donna Tartt. Definitely helps that the name Bunny is in there. And then on that theme, number 9, everyone in Shaker Heights was talking about it that summer, how Isabel, the last of the Richardson children, had finally gone around the bend and burned their house down. So that one had a ton of clues. It gave you the name of the place, the name of the family, the name of the youngest child, and even the plot of the book is all wrapped up in there. That was Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng. Really, really popular book. Okay, then number 10, that tricky one, I lost an arm on my last trip home. That is the first line of Kindred by Octavia Butler. It's a time travel novel, it's very dark, amazing. Number 11, I imagine quite a few of you recognised. It was a queer, sultry summer, the summer they electrocuted the Rosenbergs, and I didn't know what I was doing in New York. It's the first line of The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. But I think it would have been a lot harder to recognise the next one. You Better Not Never Tell Nobody But God is the first line of The Colour Purple by Alice Walker. It's a pretty harrowing first line when you read it in context. The book does become much, much more uplifting as it goes on. Number 13, Hale knew, before he had been in Brighton 3 hours, that they meant to murder him. That is the first line of Brighton Rock by Graham Greene. I haven't read it, but it sounds great. Okay, number 14 was really, really hard. Ships at a distance have every man's wish on board. Is the first line of Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. Did any of you recognise that one? And then finally, I tried to give you enough clues for this one. Number 15 was, I like to save things. Not important things like whales or people or the environment, silly things. Porcelain bells, the kind you get at souvenir shops. Cookie cutters you'll never use, because who needs a cookie in the shape of a foot? Ribbons for my hair, love letters. Of all the things I save, I guess you could say my love letters are my most prized possession. That is the first paragraph of To All the Boys I've Loved Before by Jenny Han. Such a cute book trilogy, such a cute movie trilogy, and love letters are of course a very important theme. So let me know in the comments below how you got on with this quiz, how many out of 15 you got right. I will link here to some videos of me also trying to identify books by their first lines, so you can watch me struggle this time. And see you next time.